So today we're going to talk about realistic expectations when learning a language. You have to figure out why you're studying, what your goal is, and what your effort or energy level is. A lot of students think I'm just going to learn by osmosis. I'm just going to come to the Hagwon and then I'm just going to get better because I'm attending class. And it doesn't work that way. If you are going to take a test, if your goal is to pass a test that is a written test, so I'm talking TOEIC or the writing portion of TOEFL or the writing portion of IELTS, then you need the vocabulary books. Then you need to be reading. If your goal is to pass OPIC or IELTS speaking or TOEFL speaking, then you need to be speaking and you need to be getting correction. But the type of speaking is different. IELTS speaking and OPIC speaking are slightly different from TOEFL speaking in terms of the expectations and how natural they have to be. So you also have to know what's the expectation of the test, because that's the kind of speaking that you need to study. If you are doing IELTS general versus academic, so you have to know what your goal is when it comes to taking a test. If your goal is to live in another country, you need to learn how to listen. You need to learn how to speak naturally. You need to learn a little bit of slang. In terms of English, you need to learn collocations. You need to learn phrasal verbs, because we do not speak like the book. So I went to the store and I picked up a book and I took it back home, but then I didn't really like it. So I was going to throw it away, but then I decided to take it back to the store to get my money back because, I should get my money back. And so I took it back, but they said I couldn't get my money back. So I took it back home. And then my sister, I put it away, but then my sister was like, oh, I want to read that book. So I took it back out and I gave it to my sister, and now she's reading it. You need to know phrasal verbs. You need to know all of those things. So this is really important if you're going to live in another country. You also need to know, if you're going to live in Australia, Australian English, American English, they are different English. I do not understand why Australians say, how are you going? What? Doing? Go? Why? You? No. So that's the thing. If your goal is to retain your English, so if you've studied English before, you need to practice. You need to have a conversation. You cannot retain and maintain your English by reading a book. It just doesn't work. If your goal is listening, you have to listen. There's no other option. And I will 100% admit that I hate listening because it makes me feel bad, because I don't know the words. I know nothing. So I used to watch Korean dramas, but now my Korean level is not high, but it's higher. So when I watch Korean dramas, I feel very uncomfortable because there are lots of things that I don't understand. And I'm like, oh, Cherry, you should understand that. So that's why I watch Thai dramas. Next thing, keep your expectations realistic. You're not going to improve in 1 week. You're not going to improve if you don't study. You're not going to improve if you don't try. If I sleep next to my Korean book, it is not going to teach me Korean. Another reason why I only do speaking practice now is, once the COVID pandemic started, I didn't go out as much. And what I used to do is I would go out to a coffee shop and I would do my homework. And I kind of had, this is my homework place. And in this place, I think in Korean, I do Korean homework. When the pandemic started and I didn't go to coffee shops anymore and I didn't go out, my way of thinking changed. And so I wasn't doing my homework. And when you don't do your homework, your understanding in class drops. And when you don't do this, it drops and everything. So I knew that I wasn't doing as well as I should be doing because I wasn't doing my homework. But the way my mind is set up, I couldn't do my homework without my coffee shop, and my coffee shop closed because of COVID. Mm. So you need to figure out what works for you. And you will get burned out. And when you get burned out, take a break or change your path. So a lot of students, especially in Korea, they feel like I just have to keep going, keep going, keep going. No, it's okay to take a break. The only thing is you have to make sure that you have decided how long you're going to take a break for. A lot of students have the intention of taking 2 months. 2 months becomes 4 months. 4 months becomes 4 years. And then 10 years later, they go from level 5 to level 1. And then they're like, oh. So if you're going to take a break, think about how long am I taking a break for? Why am I taking a break? I'm taking a break because I'm tired. I'm taking a break because I need to save money. I'm taking a break because I want to. You don't have to have, or you don't have to explain your reason. You just have to know what your reason is so that when things get better, when you're not as tired, when you've saved a little bit of money, you can go back to studying. Because you don't want to end up like me, where you study Spanish for your entire life and cannot make a sentence. Use it or lose it. So remember that. And the thing that is very important to me is that I never want my students to feel burdened. I don't want my students to feel guilty or ashamed. As an adult, for most people, studying is a choice. You don't have to. You're not required to. So if it's giving you stress, don't do the things that stress you out. My students very often don't do their homework. If they don't do their homework, I don't yell at them because you're an adult. I might tease them. I might joke, oh, you didn't do your homework. But oh well. When my students don't want to take the test, you don't want to take the test? That's okay. When my students say, Cherry, I need a break, that's okay. So don't feel guilty. Don't feel like you have to, because you don't. This is about what you want to do. And you need to make sure that you are finding the joy and the happiness. And if you're not finding joy and happiness, then reconsider. I am very, very, uh, for me, that's a big reason why I've put in some changes at the school, like the study cafe, because if you don't know, the study cafe currently has 25 different flavors of tea. We are not a coffee shop. I promise you, this is not a coffee shop. But there are currently 25 flavors of tea. Because, like I said before, for me, there was a kind of feeling that came with studying. And so I wanted to be relaxed and I wanted to have a place where I could relax. And that was my coffee shop. And then my coffee shop was gone and I couldn't relax. So I want students to feel like, you know what? I'm not stressed about coming to school. I'm going to sit in the study cafe, have a glass of, or have a cup of tea, talk to my friends, go to class, learn some English, meet my friends again. That's the feeling. But that's just my feeling.